It's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop. And if you're new here, welcome to my channel. Here is where I usually post baking tutorials or home bakery business tips. And if you aren't new here, welcome back. I cannot tell you how grateful I am that I have now 500 plus subscribers. And just yesterday, I received so many wonderful messages from you viewers who are just telling me how much I've inspired you. And honestly, it's been so wonderful. When you're starting out YouTube, you kind of feel like you're throwing out videos into nowhere and that nobody's listening. But after hearing those really kind comments from you guys on my Instagram, I was just so elated that whole day, and I am so happy to be continuing to make wonderful content for you guys. Without further ado, we're going to get into our topic today, which is the items that I refuse to make that would have made me a lot of money. So let's get into it. The first thing that I was always asked to do was make a cheesecake. Now, I've briefly talked about this before in one of my other videos, but I absolutely hate cheesecake. I just don't like the taste at all. I have had so many friends say to me, oh, you're gonna love this cheesecake though. You just haven't had a good cheesecake. I've eaten expensive cheesecakes, I've eaten cheap grocery store cheesecakes, I've eaten homemade cheesecakes, all of them gross, in my opinion. One of the things that I really tried to do at my bakery was sell things that I personally would want to eat. Now, I have a slight confession to make here. One of the things that I don't really eat that often are sugar cookies. Now, before I started decorating them, I actually would enjoy an iced sugar cookie. So now that I've just made so many, and for me, when I look at them, it kind of seems a little inedible because I've spent so much time on the cookie and just decorating it, and it's become more of a canvas than an actual cookie, like something I would want to eat. So I think that's a little bit different because when I started my business, I did like to eat them. It's just over time, I felt like I shouldn't eat them because they're little pieces of art, if that makes sense. But cheesecakes, I've hated the whole time. And I guess I just had this mentality that I didn't really feel like selling something that I wasn't super passionate about. And not only that, but I would have had a hard time testing if the cheesecakes were good quality or if they tasted great, because I really haven't eaten that many cheesecakes in its entirety. So it really would have been hard for me to determine quality control for a cheesecake. I mean, I guess I could have had my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time when I started this, taste them, but I don't know. It would have just been really hard to maintain good quality control for the whole duration of me selling cheesecakes. I think though that there's a huge market for cheesecakes. A lot of people love cheesecake flavored things. I didn't even offer cream cheese frosting for my cakes. So I think that if you do want to make money and you're passionate about cheesecake, cheesecake is the way to go. People love it. There's even a whole factory named after it. You know, Cheesecake Factory. Not that we have that in Canada. The next thing that I refuse to make, gluten-free cakes. Because I was already so busy making regular mainstream options, making a gluten-free cake just seemed like it would take forever. But I think looking back, if I really wanted to corner a market and if I really wanted to make a lot of money, doing gluten-free cakes would have been the way to go. I mean, it's a dime a dozen how many people sell cakes and cookies around here. But there are very few bakeries that sell gluten-free options. And if they do sell gluten-free options, they're never quite as beautiful as the ones that may contain gluten. And the reason that I think you could corner the market in this is because a lot of bakers that do these lavish cakes, they're getting so much business from everywhere else. There's actually not a whole lot of time to do these gluten-free options. When you're working in a commercial bakery or you're baking in bulk, you tend to make 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 different types of cakes, and then you kind of switch up the fillings. To add on another flavor like the gluten-free option, that means you would really have to make sure that all your bowls and pans and everything was super cleaned out every time you want to do this option. So although I really think, yes, I could have generated more money, at the time my kitchen just wasn't as big. I was quite busy already with my full-time job. But I think if you're making home baking your main source of income, cornering this type of market and offering gluten-free options is definitely the way to go. Now, I did offer some gluten-free options, macarons and meringues, but for people that are really spending the big bucks, they're looking for a gluten-free cake. So I would say that yes, it's a little bit more work. However, you can charge for that work. I would say if I were going to offer gluten-free cakes, I would put an extra $15 to $20 charge on the cake. Just because you have to be super, super careful about how you're preparing the food. A little word of caution though, if somebody is celiac, I make it really, really clear that I am not a gluten-free facility. So there is chances of trace gluten getting into their desserts. So when I would offer and sell meringues and macarons, I would just make that really clear. And I honestly never had an issue. So I think that if you were to offer gluten-free cakes, gluten-free cookies, and they were really, really highly decorated, I think that would be a really, really big moneymaker. The other thing that I refused to make was egg-free cakes. So this kind of falls into the gluten-free genre, where I didn't want to make particular cakes and cookies that were for particular allergens. And again, my reason for that was because I was already so busy. It's a lot of work to be able to come up and craft new recipes that don't contain these things. I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again in case you haven't seen the video. But when I first started opening up my own home baking business, I really had this notion that I needed to come up with ultra secret recipes and recipes that were original that I just thought of off the top of my head. But after literally selling thousands of cakes and cookies, I can honestly say that nobody can really pinpoint if your recipe is original or not. What they can pinpoint is they can pinpoint if it's made from a box or if it's made from actual scratch ingredients. So I think that is a lot more important than coming up with your own ratios, which is very difficult to do. It's hard to come up with a stabilized cake recipe. Now, the reason that I went off on that little tangent is because I felt like I had to come up with a recipe all on my own that didn't contain eggs or other allergens. And because I felt like I didn't have the ability to do that, I just didn't even bother trying. Now, even though that was 10 years ago where I was really starting to formulate what I was going to do for my business, what was my business going to sell, within the most recent years, I have found that there's a lot more gluten-free, egg-free options out there and a lot more recipes that are being shared about that. But back then, the recipes that I was finding were not that great. The recipes that I tried to make eggless were just very tasteless in my opinion. Now I've tried some other recipes out and I am amazed at how well these cakes turn out. If you want to check out an egg-free, dairy-free tutorial that I've done, you can go ahead and check out that in the right-hand corner. In my community though, a lot of people cannot eat eggs. So it's actually a really, really good option where I live. And I found that the egg-free recipes that I've been using are actually super, super stabilized. They're great for cake decorating. So I really feel like I missed out on a little bit of that market there. I really could have capitalized and been one of the first home bakeries to really offer that. So maybe in your area, not a lot of people offer that. And that might be something that you can jump on top of and make that special and be that bakery that can offer something that is an eggless variety, but looks just as beautiful as all the other varieties out there. Various types of fillings. I refuse to sell Bavarian cream, pastry creams, anything like that. I really refuse to sell. Now, generally when I suggested another type of filling, people would be fine with it. They would go with the vanilla filling instead of the Bavarian cream filling that they wanted to. However, I think that had I offered more things like that and kind of listened to the requests of my customers, I could have built a slightly bigger flavor list that would appeal more to other people. Because there are some people out there that really do want their cake to taste amazing. Some people care more about the looks and some people really care about the taste. So I think that if I had expanded my flavor list just a little bit more, I maybe would have been able to make more money with that and capitalize on that. However, I have told you in past that you should keep your flavor list fairly small. Now, I did keep my flavor list small because I wanted the ease of creating those flavors, but I think if I had learned back then how to make Bavarian cream, for example, I could have made a lot of my cake customers very happy. So those are the items that I refuse to sell, despite the fact that they would have probably made me a lot more profit. Now, a lot of the reason why I refused to make those things was because of ease. I wanted to make things fairly easy for myself because I did have another full-time job as well as another part-time job. So I was just trying to keep things nice and easy. But I really do encourage you guys, if you're trying to make an empire out of your home baking business, that you really do think hard about offering these things. It can seem a little bit intimidating sometimes to offer allergy-free options because you do have to research to make sure that your regular decorating products don't contain any of those allergens. And your cleaning has to be super, super strict. My daughter had a peanut allergy, and although it wasn't serious, even the slightest amount of peanut butter on something could cause her to have a reaction. So it is really important that you think through these options. But I will say that as time goes on and the more and more you do this, you're going to feel more and more comfortable with what you're doing. And like I said, anytime you are starting with a new product or you're testing out something new, I would start with family and friends first that you trust, that maybe have these allergies or intolerances, and then I would bring it forward and sell it to the public. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys.